Hello, class. Welcome to week 4. We are really doing well getting through all this. This week we are learning about listening to speeches, and we'll use that as we try to analyze a speech this week in our discussion, and then we'll work on analyzing speeches because later in this class we will do a peer review. Now that's not for a while, that's for a few weeks, but I wanted to give you a heads up. That's why I'm covering this information, is that way later when we listen to each other's speeches, we're able to effectively evaluate one another. Now here is a statistic from the University of Arizona. They found that, such as listening to a speech like this, you remember about 50% of the information after the presentation. Right after this, you'll kind of only remember about 50% of what I covered. Now, after about 48 hours, 2 days, that drops down to 25%. That is 1/4 of the amount that we hear that we remember. That's why in this class, you'll probably see me repeat things over and over. That way, some of it will hopefully stick and help you with the midterm in this class. Now, I thought that was a pretty crazy statistic, and this speaker does a good job talking about that statistic itself. And if you ever wanted to dive a little deeper into listening, this is one that I'm going to share in our class. It'll be in the supplemental material folder under videos. It'll be videos you are able to watch if you'd like. I wanted to recommend that one because the speaker does a great job expanding on that 25% and how to be a more effective listener. Now, in our textbook, you will notice there are 6 stages of listening. The first one is physically hearing the message. If you hear the clicking, I'm sorry, that's my remote. I'm clicking through the little PowerPoint for you all. But listening is basically physically hearing something. That does not mean listening. That can be confusing. A lot of times my 3-year-old, I'll tell him, hey, don't do that. And he's like, what? What? I don't hear you. Because if I don't hear you, I don't have to listen, right? Hearing is just physically receiving the sounds and the stimulus. After that is stage 2, that is understanding. That is, we focus on the meaning. We try to use our knowledge to translate that information, such as you're hearing this in English and we're translating it to understand exactly what is being told to us. After that, you will start to remember the information. We're mentally saving the things we're hearing, such as you're trying to remember it all. That way, if it ever popped up in the midterm, you'll remember some of it, hopefully. If not, don't worry. I'll put these slides on our little supplemental stuff. That way you have it for later. The 4th is interpreting. You'll remember that information, and then you'll start to try to understand that message and try to perceive its importance, such as you try to relate it to past things or you try to figure out how to remember that information. And then you'll evaluate it. You'll try to see if it's important. You'll realize if it's critical for something to stay for now or something to think about for later. Like right now, you're probably evaluating, hey, she's talking about stages. Is this something I should write down for our midterm, or is it something that might not be covered until later? And that's when you'll respond. That's how you respond to the situation. You hear all this. Now there are 6 stages, but we go through these really fast. In about a second of someone talking, you go through each of these stages really quickly. Our brains are pretty incredible. We can really understand and interpret things a lot faster than we receive them in, if that makes sense. Now this is a little quiz. I won't read them all because, as you know, I can only record about 15 minutes. And this is just something to really think about for you as an audience member. Do you ever tune out a speaker or daydream, fake paying attention, letting environment or mannerisms such as my hand gestures impact you fully listening? This is just thinking about the non-listening behaviors we may use. This can really impact us perceiving a speaker, such as if we're in an algebra class, maybe we're not fully interested in the topic, but finding a way to stay focused will help us. Now, what can we do if we use some of those non-listening behaviors? Here are a few of my tips. The first is catching yourself in that you're using them. Catch that you're looking at your phone and you're distracted, or catch that you hear environment noises and they're impacting you, or that you're studying someone's mannerisms a little more than you should be. Start to really catch that you're doing that and guard against it. Another one is to sit straight up. Have an attentive posture. Using that will help you hopefully stay awake instead of watching videos where you're leaning I'm starting to do that because I do that if it's boring and kind of like lean and I'm falling asleep in a meeting. Have a more attentive posture, and that can help you focus and listen more effectively. Keep your eyes on the speaker. I use a little video here. Smaller, I can make it bigger. I like to keep it smaller so you can see the slides, but keep your eyes focused on the speakers themselves. That helps you to stay focused on hopefully what they are saying. Another, if it'll let me, is react honestly, give your true feedback, and take notes. Hopefully that helps with some of you taking notes if you're in a class and you're not fully able to pay attention. Maybe you're really tired. Taking notes will help you focus and to listen on what they're saying. You can write it down or even do doodles. That can help you stay focused. And lastly, this is the most important, is focusing on the value of the speech. What are you going to get out of this? From your classmates' speeches, why should you focus on the value? Look for why it can interest you. How can it impact you? And that's because you'll be doing peer reviews. You're going to want to pay attention. That way you can help them with some critiques. Now there are types of listening. I'll try to move this for you all. And the first is appreciative listening. That would be such as the first picture over here with the concert. That would be appreciative listening for pleasure, such as listening to music, or if you were one of the lucky few who went to Pitt State to hear Peyton Manning talk, that would be about pleasure, wanting to hear the information. The second is empathetic listening, to provide emotional support, such as listening to a friend who's having a bad day. Listening to them first before you respond is a really good way to be successful in a relationship. Type 3 is comprehensive listening, to get information. That would be these slides. If you're watching these lectures, it's to help you get information on things being covered, that we were able to listen and comprehend information. And then critical, deliberate making and evaluation. Again, that might be kind of hard to see. Hopefully that helps a little bit for you all. But you can kind of see how we use each of these a little bit differently in our everyday lives. Now, probably what you're curious about for our discussion this week is analyzing speeches. Now, this is more for when we're doing peer evaluations later of each other. One way to avoid making things too harsh is avoiding you. Don't write "you did bad" in your speech. Obviously, that's rude, but try to take the "you" out of it. Focus on the speech itself, such as the introduction needed more information, didn't grab attention. The hand gestures used just distracted me. Focus on the things itself rather than you as the speaker. That way it helps. It also helps if you look for things that the speaker did well with, maybe needed to work on, and some more good things. That's called a sandwich method. And also take notes. Focus on the whole aspect of the speech itself. Now, for your discussion this week, it's important that you'll do these 4 things you're going to look for. You're going to want to look for the purpose of the speech. This is called the speech goal. Next week, we're going to actually really focus on our speech goals. We're going to pick our topics this week, and then we're going to dive into outlining and really getting those speeches to come together. You will look for the purpose. That would be the topic of the speech for the discussion. The content, how the speech flowed, if there were transition statements, did it make sense? Was it understandable? Or was it like my brother-in-law who's a little ADHD and it's kind of all over? Hey, some speakers do that and it's effective. Techniques is vocal delivery or eye contact, posture, that attentive posture. Were they leaning? How was their attire? Did that help them come across as confident? And lastly, the most important is, was the speech effective? Did they get the points across? Was it understandable? Did it motivate you? Things like that. Really focus on that. And also I'll try to give out a rubric. That way you can kind of have an idea of how to critique the speeches this week for the discussion. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to help you all. I hope you have a great week.